Hi everybody and welcome back to Lost Genre. For today's video I picked a couple of posts from entitled parents. I know you've heard stories about entitled parents before, but these two entitled moms take the cake. So now let's get started with the first story. This one is from user Fred's Red. I've posted a few stories about things my entitled mother has done and why I no longer speak to her. I've had some people say I should give her a second chance. Here's a list of reasons why that will never happen. Number 1. Played favorites and destroying my belongings at age 6. I first noticed my mother playing favorites, my younger sister who's 3 years younger than me, when I was 6 years old, Christmas 1996. My sister got all the big presents and I got a few cheap bracelets and an ornament. My dad bought us rollerblades for Christmas that year and the next day we were outside trying them out. My sister, 3 at the time, fell over and hit her head and began crying. My mother came out of the house and began screaming at me, assuming I pushed her, which I didn't. She wasn't hearing it though and sent me to my room. A few minutes later, she came into my room in a rage and smashed all my belongings, including my Christmas presents. Half an hour later, she came in and said, her words exactly, "Your room is an effing pigsty, clean it up now!" When I asked her about it the next day, she claimed to not know what I was talking about. Number 2. Freaked out when I got my period for the first time. If you've seen the movie Carrie, you will understand what happened. My mother isn't as psychotic as Carrie's mom, and she's not religious, but she went really weird. She started asking if I was active, how heavy it was, if I knew what it meant, but she wouldn't tell me. If I was ashamed of myself, and a lot of other weird questions. Every time I'd ask her to buy me pads, she never would. She'd just throw money at me and say she didn't want to know. And there were occasions when I had to ask my friends' moms for pads because my mom had no money or wouldn't spend her child support money on me because I'm not worth it. But if my sister wanted anything, she'd get it for her immediately. Number 3. Wouldn't call an ambulance when I fell off a horse, but called one when the same thing happened to my sister. I was about 13 when this happened. My mom and my sister were really into riding horses, and I never was, but I was so desperate for my mom's approval that I started going to the pony club with them. One day, my horse got spooked by something and bucked me off. He was a really big horse. I almost landed on top of a barbed wire fence and was knocked out for a few minutes. I woke up to my mother screaming at me, saying, "What the bloody effing hell do you think you're doing, you stupid something or other?" She didn't even help me up. A few months later, the same thing happened to my sister, but this time my mother freaked out and came into the house screaming at me to get off my useless lazy butt and help my sister while mom called an ambulance. My sister wasn't hurt. She'd fallen off a small horse onto a pile of dirt, but she was milking the attention for everything it was worth. She was taken to the hospital and didn't go to school for the rest of the week. Number 4. Takes down my door because it made a noise when I closed it. When I was 12, I lost the privilege of having a bedroom door. The latch wouldn't click shut unless you gave it a harder push, and it would swing open if it wasn't clicked shut. My mom refused to fix it. One day, when I was closing the door so I could change clothes, it made a little too much noise for my mother's liking. She burst into my room screaming at me to shut the door up. Then she took out the hinges and took it away. From 12 until 14, I had no bedroom door and no privacy to change my clothes or sleep with the door closed. Number 5. My sister and her friend broke into the school, but it was somehow my fault. This happened when I was 13. It was during school holidays and my sister and her BFF broke into the school and wrote out merit awards to each other, which was obviously a stupid idea and is how they were caught. After this happened, I got the feeling that my mom was angry at me for what they done. This was confirmed many years later. The next story is a continuation to this. Number 6. Admitted to my friend's mom how much she hated me. I always knew that my mom didn't like me, but the most I was ever told was that I was an accident and that she regretted having me. But I heard from my best friend's mom a few years ago exactly what my mom thought of me. My friend was over for a sleepover one weekend, and my mom was talking to her mom. These are some of the things my mom said. "I just can't believe that little sister would do something like that. It's more of what OP would do. I'd never done anything that would give her that idea. I don't know why anyone would be friends with OP. If I were in school, I wouldn't be friends with her. Number 7. Destroyed my belongings because she couldn't find the broom. This happened one summer weekend day when I was 13. My mom burst into my room and demanded to know where the broom was. I said I didn't know and I hadn't been outside all day. She accused me of hiding the broom and began throwing my belongings at me. In fear of my life, I ran out of the house and ran to the police station at the other end of town. This was in 2003 and I didn't own a mobile phone. When we got back to the house and the police asked her what happened, she put on her sweet and innocent face and said, "I don't know what she's talking about. She must be on her period or something." The policeman believed her and wouldn't hear my side of the story and left. Number 8. Her verbal abuse turned physical. Her abuse was mostly verbal and throwing things at me until I was 14. She started getting into these fits of rage over nothing. Couldn't find the remote? That's a slap in the face. Got angry over nothing, turns into pushing me into a wall and throwing me and my sister out of the house. Couldn't find something to watch on TV? Then she'd punch me in the face, push me on the ground and kick me in the back. Her horse didn't win at the show? Of course it's my fault. Her car won't start? Again my fault. Ran out of money? Guess what? My fault. And the list goes on. She did this until I was 15, when I had enough. I warned her, take one step further and you'll regret it. Needless to say, she regretted it. The glass jar smashed to the side of her face gave her the message. She never touched me again after that, and I moved in with my dad. Number 9. Physically abused my autistic brother. I won't get into too much detail with this one, but I found out a few years ago that my mother used to rip chunks of hair out of his head and many other atrocious things. Number 10. Wanted to turn off the life support when I was in a coma. When I was 17, New Year's Eve 2007, I suffered a spinal cord injury and brain injury after falling off a roof. I was placed under an induced coma. My dad was with me the whole time, but it took my mom 3 weeks to come, even though her partner at the time could have paid to get her there sooner. All she knew was that I'd had an accident and was in a coma. She came with things to bury me with. My parents were given the option to turn the life support off. My dad said no, having faith that I'd pull through, but my mom said yes and threw a tantrum when she didn't get her wish. So instead of burying me with what she brought, they were placed on my bed while I was in a coma. Rehabilitation was hard and traumatic, so I don't like talking about it, so I'll skip ahead to the next thing. Number 11. Threw a tantrum after my dad told me. While I was in rehab after my injury, my dad let it slip that my mom wanted to turn the life support off on me. Up until this point, I didn't know this. I called my mom and told her I never want to see her again, and that if I'm dead to her, then she's dead to me. And number 12. Tried to steal money from her kids after our dad dies. In 2009, my dad and my uncle, his brother, died in a plane crash. I was 19, my sister 16, and my brother 22. My mother was there the next day to offer her support, but nobody wanted her there. My entire family despises her. She started asking questions about the will and his assets, information we didn't give her. We didn't know the cause of death for 3 weeks after his death, and lo and behold, she got nothing. The will was written before my parents had ever met. The will gave everything to my dad's siblings, and they gave it all to me and my siblings, so long as we promised that our mother got nothing. She's tried a few times in the past few years to get money from us, but we won't talk to her. I haven't spoken to my mother in about 7 years, and I don't ever plan on seeing her again. She's a toxic person, and life is better without her. My brother still talks to her from time to time, but me, my sister, and the rest of the family want nothing to do with her. And me and my sister are really close. She's not entitled, and I hold no resentment towards her. I love her to bits. What a horrible person, horrible mother, horrible everything. Not just entitled, but all the way nuts. First of all, I don't understand people that hate their own kids. If you didn't want to have kids, then you should have been more careful. And then if your kid's personality is something that you don't like, well, that's your own fault because you raised them. It's a really good thing that OP cut her out of her life because, like she says, she is a toxic person. Ugh. Alright, now let's move on to the next story. This one's from user, "Hey, it's me, look! When I was a kid, after my twin brother got diagnosed with cancer, I became obsessed with saving money for my future. I figured if only one of us got to have one, I'd have to make it awesome enough for the both of us. He's in remission for 10 years next month, but at the time, I didn't know he'd live. This meant every holiday I found myself saving all the money I got because I was going to go to Harvard. I was going to have an awesome career and zero student debt. I'd also mow lawns, weed gardens, as well as tutor and babysit kids when I got old enough. At the point this story happened, I had a happy $10,000 saved up. Not enough for all of college, but only $3,000 less than my total loans for college. I was also not allowed a bank account because of my age. This meant I had roughly $10,000 in my closet in a shoebox. My mom had my sister when I was 14 and she was born very early, 27 weeks, and spent most of her first year in and out of hospitals. So my mom has dedicated her life to making my sister's life the best it can be. One day shortly after my sister was born, my mom asked if she could borrow some money as they would be short on rent that month due to my mom and stepdad being at the hospital so much and having their savings depleted. I made her promise to pay me back and handed her $500 from the box and told her to put it back in said box when she was to pay me back. I checked 2 months later and she had paid me back. Cool. Then my sister's birthday rolled around. It was an amazing feat that she had made it to 1 year. My mom was ready to have a huge party. She rented out an entire aquarium because my little sister loved Ariel. She got my sister a custom-made dress that looked like Ariel's pink one from the movie. Huge cake from the best local bakery, tower of presents, the whole 9 yards. Near the end of the party, she announced that she had taken notes from my thrifty saving and had started my sister a high-interest savings account with $1,000 at the moment, so when she turned 18, she'd be set. She also informed family members that any money she received as a gift today would go there. We weren't wealthy by any means, so I figured that my stepdad's parents, wealthy old money, had paid for all of this. I was 15 at the time this happened, and with a permit from school, I was able to get a part-time job. I went to put my first check in my shoebox and I had noticed it only had 1 envelope in it versus the 10 I had. I opened it up expecting to count $1,000, but it was only $374, showing whoever took it had the foresight to put back what they didn't use. I had an absolute panic attack, like fell to the ground screaming, hyperventilating, crying, unable to speak panic. That's when my brother came in. He wasn't sure what to do, so he got my mom. She got down to my level and soothed me to where I was able to communicate something. She asked what happened and I was only able to tell her that we were robbed. She didn't understand what I meant and I started crying again and said, "I only have $300. I noticed my mom became slightly less comforting and her tone became slightly nervous. She looks at my brother and asks him if he took it, which he denied by saying, "Why would I steal from OP? I didn't even know she had money." Then she turns to me and tells me that I surely lost it. "No 15-year-old needs $10,000 anyways. We'll get you a bank account, that way this won't happen again." I angrily tell her that I didn't lose it and she replies in a dismissive way that I must have thrown it away or something. That's when it suddenly clicked, how my sister had such an awesome party. So, half scared and half impotent, I said, "Mom, please tell me that you didn't take it for sister's birthday." My mom got defensive and started acting all guilty and offended and said something like, "I would never do that. What would I even use it for?" She then started babbling this pathetic speech about my sister having such a hard life and that I would be lucky if that's what happened to my money and that my money had actually come from her. Only part of it, but whatever. And she finished by saying, "I remember putting $500 in your stupid box." My brother stood there in disbelief and blurted out, "Oh my god, mom's a thief." This sets her off into another speech about how she's not a thief and that she's given everything for us to have the best lives possible, that she spent most of her time with my brother when he was sick and that she shaved his head when his hair was falling out. This went on, but you get the gist. I told her that the money she gave me, the one she claimed to put in my stupid box, was actually her paying me back money I lent her to pay for rent. My brother said something else, but my mom cut him off and said, "Out! This is between OP and I, woman to woman." She pushed my brother out and locked the door behind him. Then she turned to me all sweet and told me that someday when I become a mom, I'll understand that you would do anything for your kids. Then she says, "When God gives you 2 sick kids who get better, you want to celebrate them. Don't you want your sister to have a good time? Doesn't she deserve to go to college someday? You're so smart and strong, you don't need help like the other 2. You'll probably get a full ride anyway." I was in tears and too shaken up to talk. I just sobbed in the fetal position. She continued to talk at me for a while, but I don't remember much other than waking up there for school the next day with my comforter on me and my twin brother sleeping in my bed with his blanket and pillow. I never got any money back, but after buying a small safe with that paycheck instead, saved up more and worked 2 jobs when I was 16 so I could have money. I ended up with about $5,000 after having to pay for my own car and insurance to get to and from work and a few other things. And so, to close up this story, I'll finish saying that this all happened a while ago. I have my own bank account that I started the day I turned 18. My mom now knows not to ask for money or babysitting for my little sister. She's spoiled rotten and I can't stand her for reasons unrelated to this. One example, she's tried to smack my baby out of my hand so she can hold the baby. My brother and I are thick as thieves from the womb to the tomb. He's my best friend. I didn't get to go to Harvard, I got into Yale and have about $13,000 total debt. I got a lot of scholarships. It's not bad, but could be $10,000 better. Aw man, stealing from your own kid? That's low. Very, very low. It's unexcusable, but what makes it worse is that it was to pay for a lavish birthday party for another kid. And not just a party, but opening up a savings account with $1,000 in it. So before I finish up the video, I'd like to ask you guys to tell me in the comment section which of these 2 entitled moms sucks the most. And now, of course, we've reached the end of the video where I ask you that if you did like it, click like. If you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and subscribe. Don't forget to visit the Lost Genre subreddit and cross-post stories you'd like me to feature in videos or share your own story. Alright, and having said all that, I'll see you guys on the next video.